We'll be doing Micro Crossed Weft installation. You will need micro rings, the same colour as your lady's root. I'll be doing them a different colour just so you can see more clearly. You will need curved needles. You will need all your clips and combs that we use for sectioning. You will also need your nylon thread, the same colour as your lady's roots. You will need your hair extension pliers and all your clips and combs that we use for sectioning. When we do a Micro Crossed Weft installation and you have it all sectioned ready, you need to grab the top layer about a finger in thickness, and you need to remove the edges about 2 to 3 fingers worth away, just so that when your client puts her hair up, you can't see the weft. You need to grab your pintail comb to make sure that the bottom section is straight. And then you need to clip away any hair that you won't be using. Normally you'd match the colour rings to your client's hair, but today I'll be using a lighter colour just so that you can see it a bit more clearly. So you grab a section of hair about 2 fingers in thickness. You then separate the 2 sections so that they're the same thickness as 1 finger. You hold them separately, but you put a ring onto one of them. When you still have hold of the other section of hair. You put the micro ring onto one piece and then you go back down through the micro ring that you have. You grab the hair and you pull it through. So therefore it gives you a crisscross micro loop. You do this on the other parts. You have 2 sections, you loop one, you go down the ring with the looper and you grab the section that doesn't have the ring on. You pull that through the hair, through the ring, and you pull it tight. You have 1 bit left remaining. Do exactly the same to this part. Make sure that no hair entangles into these sections that shouldn't be there, because that will cause damaging and matting. You will end up with 3 crossed rings like so. You take the weft that you'll be using and you measure a piece up that fits. If you don't have them pre-cut, you measure it and cut it to the exact length that you need. Normally you'd use the same colour string as the root, but today I'll be using blonde just so you can see it a lot more clearly. When you take your thread, you need to take 3 arms lengths worth of thread. You thread it into your curved needle. You fold it over, and then you need to tie a knot in the top to make sure that it doesn't come loose. You take the weft that you're going to be using and you clip it to where you need it. Make sure that your sections are always neat and tidy so that you don't have any hair going in where it doesn't belong. You put your needle through the ring and you attach it to the furthest end of the weft to make sure that you're not going to be having any weft that's coming away from the ring. You need to put it in the ring and onto the weft. Once it's through the weft, you need to make sure that your needle is through the middle of your loop on your string. You need to do this 3 or 4 times to ensure that the ends of your wefts don't become loose. Put the needle in through the ring and the weft and then you put the needle in the middle of your string. You pull it up and you pull it as tight as you can. Once you have done that, you need to then move in to the middle of where the rings are. You cannot directly go to the next ring because of that would leave a long bit of string across there which would catch in hairbrushes. So you put your needle through the weft, you put the needle through the middle of the string and you pull up. You keep measuring the weft to make sure that it's in the correct place and that you're not going to have overlap when you get to the end. Now we'll be going through the micro ring, through the weft and back through the middle of the string and pulling up. And we'll do this 2 or 3 times to make sure that it's super strong and super secure. Now we move on to the other ring, but to do that we have to get there. So we leave at most about 1 centimetre in between each stitch. You go through the ring and then you go through as far to the end of the weft as you possibly can to ensure that there's no flappy bits left over. The needle goes through the middle of the string and you pull it tight, and on the ends you want to do it 3 or 4 times just to make sure that it doesn't come loose, because this is the part of the hair that will receive the most damage from the hairbrush and from tugging and pulling and tying up. Now to finish it off, you want to fold over the string and pull your needle into the hole. Tighten it as much as you can, place your thumb there and pull. This creates a knot so that the weft won't come loose. So you hold your hand, you twist, you take the needle through the middle and then you manipulate the cross to the end of the weft and pull it tight. I'll show you one more time. Make a circle, pull the needle through the circle, pull it tight, and then we're going to cut as close as we can, but not too close because it will unravel the knot. Now, once it's tied, you need to flip the weft over. But you need to pull all of your customer's natural hair out. So all the hair that's attached to the rings needs to come down. You need to pull on the rings, either side, to make sure they're as close as can be. You then need to clamp the rings flat so that it's comfortable on your client's head. If they weren't clamped flat, they'd cause irritation to your customer's scalp. You pull it back down, you remove any excess thread, you brush it through, double check that when they tie their hair up you can't see it, and then you would move on to your different sections. For a micro crossed weft, I use a small one at the bottom, I use a large weft above the ear and the whole way around the head, and then I like to use 2 singulars either side of the head because it brings it in to the customer's face more. So in total I use 4 wefts, all different sizes depending on the client's head. If my client has really thick hair, I would do 5 rows, but it just depends on your customer's hair. Sometimes I only do 3, sometimes I do 4, sometimes I do 5. When you make your section, you need to make sure that it's 3 fingers above the ear, otherwise when they put their hair up they'll see it. and you want to follow the shape of your customer's head. So instead of doing a straight line, you would like to curve the section. You just double check with your fingers above your customer's ear and make sure that it's 3. Make sure that we don't have any flyaways. Now you need to take your section, which will be a finger's worth of thickness. Remove 2 to 3 fingers worth of hair from the front, depending on the client's thickness of hair. If they have thin hair, you might need to leave a bit more. If they have really thick hair, you can normally get away with going a little bit closer than you normally would. You need to clip away any unwanted hair. And now you can start installing your rings. So you need them 2 fingers worth of thickness. You take your looper, you have them in separate fingers, you put your micro ring onto one, you put your looper down, and you thread the other bit of hair that doesn't have a ring on through the looper. You hold tight onto the bit of hair where the micro ring is, and you pull through the bit of hair which didn't have the ring on. Pull it tight and leave it there for the moment. Thread your ring on, put your looper down, attach the bit of hair that doesn't have a ring on it. Hold on tightly to the bit of hair that had the ring on and pull the unringed hair through. You do this the whole way round. Make sure that no hair is attached from any other parts of the hair, because that will cause tangling and matting. You need to make sure that you have enough hair in the rings that will carry the weight. So you don't want to leave it too of a thin bit of hair. You need to make sure that you have as much hair as you can fit in the rings, so that when you have the weight of the weft on the rings, it won't cause any damage to the hair. But this is a very kind method of weave because it's over a high surface area, so that it's distributing the weight of the weft evenly throughout this part of the hair, rather than it just having one bit of hair going onto the weft. And also where it's crossed over, where it will be sewn on and clamped, it's quite hard to fall down. If you have a bit like this left over, don't be tempted to run into this part. What I do is just have a singular ring on the end that you can sew it into. You measure your weft, make sure that it fits. You have your needle, and when you have just a singular micro ring in, you need to make sure that you hold it when you sew, otherwise it will fall down. So you want to make sure that you have your finger behind it. You want to sew it on to the very end of the weft, just so that you don't have any bits flapping. Put the needle through the ring, through the end of the weft, pull it to the end, you go in again, through the ring, through the weft, put the needle in the middle of the thread, pull it tight. You're going to do this 3 or 4 times to make sure that it's nice and secure. Now when you move along, don't go any further than 1 centimetre. Keep making sure you move in small stages. Otherwise, when they brush their hair will catch on the thread and it will come loose a lot faster. When you get to a ring, just make sure you go through that ring 2 to 3 times. And now you're moving along towards the next ring. You find the ring. I just place my finger under the ring to make sure that I have control of that ring. Now I can see that I'm getting towards the end of my thread and that my thread won't last the whole way of the weft. I will continue to sew to the other ring until my needle won't go through the middle of my string anymore. Just like so, it's getting a bit tight. So what I do now is I cut it right at the end towards the needle. I twist and I pull the string through the middle of the hole and I pull it tight. So I loop, I then feed this end of the string through the loop and I pull the knot as tight as I can, just like when we finished the first weft. And now I cut as close as I can, but not too close. I re-thread the string 3 arms lengths, 1, 2, 3. Any more is unmanageable. I thread the needle, thread through the needle, making sure that they're exact length both ways. I then tie a knot in the end of my thread so that I won't lose the thread when I'm sewing. Now when I sew, I don't start here, I'll start exactly where I finished to ensure that if that thread becomes loose, it has this thread on top to hold it securely. And I go 2 or 3 times, putting the needle through the ring and the weft, and then putting the needle through the middle. Of the string. Pull it as tight as I can. I'll cut off any excess that I have towards the end. I just move my way along to the other ring. I put the needle through the ring, the needle through the weft, and then through the middle of the string. Now when you get to the end, you thread your needle through the ring and you attach it as far as you can to the end of the weft. Make sure that your needle's in the middle and you pull it tight. As tight as you can. And do this about 3 to 4 times to make sure that it doesn't come loose. And now you finish at the end, twist a circle, put the needle, twist into a circle, put the needle through the circle and pull the knot as tight as you can to the end. I do this about 3 times to make sure it's nice and secure. I then cut it. I then flip the weft onto the top of the head. I remove any natural hair. The good thing is that the rings will show you where their natural hair is, because when it's an exact colour match, it's quite hard to find. But you just make sure that you need a bit of hair out each side of the ring. Pull it tight because it can drop from once you've installed the rings and sewn it on. And remember, we have that singular one there. So now we just need to clamp them. This one here, you do exactly the same. You just need to make sure that you clamp it flat. And then all the other normal ones, the crossed ones, you just make sure they're flat to the scalp so that you don't cause your customer any irritation. This installation is really good for people with thick hair, just because it laps over their hair. So if they have a blunt cut, it will hide the blunt cut really easily. You then take the string, any string left over that you don't need, give it a brush through, make sure that there isn't any gaps or any loose bits at all. There is your middle section of the weft. So I also do one more here just to bring it in at the front, and then one more on the other side just there, bring it in the front, about the same size as the bottom one, sometimes a bit larger, just depending on if your client has thick or thin hair. With these as well, you can also double the weft. So if your customer likes it quite thick, you can add 2 wefts, but you need to make sure that you sew the wefts together first before you attach it to the ring, just for extra security, to make sure that the wefts don't become unravelled when they have the hair installed.